All right, welcome. This is the weekly briefing. What is today? Today is Wednesday, November 15th. Oh, that's right. I'm doing a dinner tonight here in New York, I think.
You are doing a dinner.
Are you coming, Tim?
I'm here waiting for you already, so what happened?
Oh, there you are. Hey,
so ready.
I love it. Are you
here,
actually
at the
there?
bar.
Seriously? Are you at the
No,
bar?
I'm at the Ace. I'll be there as soon as we're done. So I'll see you early.
That's fantastic. I love it.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere, Tristan.
Hey.
You gotta start open the bar, man. Come on.
The thing I know about Tristan is he knows the early bird gets the worm, and he's got a sales mind. So he's like, he knows if you ain't early, you're late. So he's early.
That's right. Early is on time, and on time is late. Let's go.
That's right. I love it. Well, thanks everyone for being here. Just a quick reminder what the weekly briefing is. Tim, I'll tell everyone. It's the 30 minutes where Tim and I get together each week based on what we're seeing in the industry, maybe conversation that's going on inside of our community of owners, creative leaders, or a bit of news that people are talking about, right? It's that thing that we think is conversation worthy to help you in running a thriving creative business. Tim is my co-conspirator. Say hi, Tim. And what are we talking about today?
Yeah, it's so great to be with you. I'm going to put a little announcement with part of my hello too, that we are going to take a break next week because it is the day before Thanksgiving in the States. So we are not going to be here next week. So this is a hello for the next 2 weeks and a happy Thanksgiving if I don't get a chance to say that to you before.
Yeah, nice. Thank you.
Today's topic is kind of fun because I swear, Joel, this topic has been around for years of how we explain what we do, what we contribute, and what we call it. But more recently, a New York Times article with Emma Thompson discussing this idea of how to describe the words we use. I'm going to throw a poll out there as part of our introduction as well. But this is the conversation that we're having today is like, what's the best term to use when we explain, what we give our clients or how we're pushing forward the industry, and are we possibly doing ourselves a disservice? So before we get started, I'm going to launch this poll real quick.
Okay.
Just a simple question. Have you ever used the term content to describe your work?
No, wait, Tim, I don't get to participate in the poll. Come on.
I don't think Matt does either because Matt's a co-host in this thing too.
Oh,
Matt, are you joining us here in Spotlight? Should I bring you on here?
No, I'm just here to enjoy.
Okay, go ahead. Then
I love it. That was his gentle way of saying, no, Tim, I haven't had my coffee yet.
Please don't make me. All right, I'm going to end this poll here. If I say that, share the results.
All right, got it.
How does that look?
71% ever. That's a trick question. Fair enough, Gareth.
Thanks, Gareth. Calling us out.
Yeah, Tim, why? So I guess the interesting question is why this poll? Why are you asking this question?
Yeah, it's interesting because the word content is a catch-all phrase, and I think that we've thrown it around very easily in our industry. It really is to say almost to, I don't know, nominalize or do a catch-all of what we're working on, because film, TV, commercial, whatever, short form, online, not online, OTT, all these places we have to put the work that we're doing. We've used the term content to be the catch-all. But content the word has lost its magic, or maybe even never had its magic for our industry to really describe the aspect of what we put into our work, or the hard work we put out there, and what it takes when we're actually just turning into content. Because if a TikTok user-generated content is in competition with your 15-minute documentary about something very important to you, you realize, oh man, this is like, I don't want to use the same word when I'm doing something special or more professional than just, a 15-minute distraction piece.
Well, here's a little bit from the article, which is what inspired a conversation that we're talking about today. So I'm going to share my screen and check this out. Kind of interesting. So this is Emma Thompson. This is from Variety Magazine, appointed rebuke to the term content by saying, to hear people talk about content makes me feel like the stuffing inside a sofa cushion. Okay. It's just a rude word for creative people. I know there are students in the audience. You don't want to hear your stories described as content or your acting or producing described as content. That's just like coffee grounds in the sink or something. Why would it matter though? Okay, I'm going to play, of course, a little bit dumb just so that we can argue both sides of this. But like, to anyone here, Tim, what's the big deal, right? It's just a word. We're using a label. We picked that label. Why would that be a bad label?
Yeah, it's just as a catchphrase of the work that we're doing. It only just plays out to the commodity of it, because the purpose of content really feels like it is a placeholder for anything. And on the surface level, we obviously get paid by however many minutes of content we make, or how much to what part of the film, what part of the content we contribute. We can create a value proposition within that. But if you truly are a storyteller or are doing something in pure art and you're commoditizing your work down to its most base level, the word content, you're not being seen in the professional nature that you might want to be. And I think that's where, what's the word that Emma used? Crude. It's crude to use that word.
Yeah, rude.
Okay.
So I'm going to call on a couple of people because the comments are so good right here. They're so good. And I'm thinking about the idea, like, Tim, if I reached out to anybody here, like Ryan Summers, Meg Wells, Matt, I'm going to call on you as well. Imagine if I was, I don't know, I'm going to pretend to be your client and maybe be a bit obnoxious. Yeah, we got to fill that. We got to fill that thing with some content. Go find me a content company that can make some content for us to stick in there. Now we're starting to get to the commodity of it, right? So I'm curious. I don't know if Meg is available on audio or.
Come on, Meg, jump in here.
Why? Yeah, you
Hello.
said. Hi, Meg. Why is content creator a rage-inducing term? I love that.
Well, I think I followed it up with another comment around, I understand why labels are useful in terms of alignment for stakeholder expectations, but I think, many other people have said this in the chat here and in other conversations too, that cheapening of the product, and it also doesn't allow for subject matter expertise. It doesn't allow for differentiation in terms of audience or format or purpose or intent. And I think it causes us to have a harder job in terms of educating our clients around what we're doing and why.
Would you tell me if this comparison works here, Meg? Because as you were talking, I was thinking, if I was Ferrari and somebody said, "Oh, you guys create transportation," is that a bit of the conflict that you see here?
Or just car? You guys make cars,
right?
Yeah.
Vehicles.
There are certain people that probably are having that conversation with Ferrari, but I don't think it goes very far.
Yeah.
So in contrast, what's the other side of this coin, right? So if someone was coming to you and saying, "Hey, Meg, as a director, we're a big brand and we're looking to create content," how would you flip that or turn that into something that perhaps helps them understand that this is not a commodity widget?
I think my approach, and this is personal for everybody, but my approach is, let's start with what you're trying to do, the problem you're trying to solve, and who you're trying to talk to. Then let's create the story that solves that. And then let's talk about the formats that might be right to execute against that. Instead of making it about content, we're talking about the who, the why, the what, and then the where.
Got it. I love that answer.
That's not just content.
Yeah. I'd be curious. So 71% or 10 out of 14 people that did the poll for us said they use the word content. I'd be curious. Someone raised their hand that wants to jump in here and tell us when and why you use that term. What was the intention when you did happen to use that term in your conversation? Because I feel like there's a functional purpose around it that we get pulled into. So today we can talk about the nature, but anybody want to throw out there a time that they use the word content, or you think it'd be appropriate or at least helpful to stick with that term and not anything else? Otherwise, I have to speculate. I have to do all the speculating though. Should I call on somebody?
Or I just have to call on somebody. Oh, Matt's going to jump in. Matt, why is,
Yeah.
I loved your comment about video opposed to film or story.
Yeah. Well, I think it's, certainly YouTube has made content more prolific, where suddenly a brand film and a 6-second ad can be put on the same level. But I think sometimes if you do want to approach a client about doing a bigger branch of work, so maybe you do want to do the brand film and the social stuff, then the term content is good to get people to think agnostically about what they want to do, because I think fundamentally sometimes on the flip side, people get hung up on the most microscopic details and can lose total perspective on what they're doing. Whereas you need to find, I think earlier, as Meg said, the form needs to fit the format. And so that you can talk more holistically about a campaign and then focus on, well, this is the really expensive one and this is the cheap one.
Did you see the comment there, both of you, from Ryan, which I thought was insightful, talking about this generational question? Because when you use the term content stack, in a way, what I almost hear you saying there, Ryan, is if you're talking to a client who's trying to solve a problem and you're saying there's a content stack, I'm obviously going to be selling them on the top of that, which is called what? Something. And something down here that's much more lower level is the filler, the fluff, the banners, right? That kind of stuff. Is that the idea behind what you were saying there, Ryan?
I mean, I think a lot of it, I hate the term content because I think it's weaponized against us in terms of like, it just dumbs down and lumps everything together. I also have a converse reaction talking to a lot of new brands that I think our ego is really stinging us, because we hear content and we think it means that like we're being lumped in with people making YouTube videos. But when you actually talk to a brand that's desperately trying to figure out how to make a stand on a YouTube channel, and that's where their audience is, you actually realize content creators are ridiculously sophisticated. Talk to anybody who has a YouTube channel and ask them how much time they spend on thumbnails and titles and A/B testing. And there's an incredible amount of deep strategic thought that we always try to sell ourselves as storytellers having that control of. I don't look at the YouTube channels or at least the strategy or the work behind it as like the low-hanging fruit anymore. I look at it as an entryway into being able to do a lot more of the work we think is going to make us a lot of money. We're working with, I think, 2 or 3 different brands right now, trying to do like comprehensive analysis of like, okay, why would you use TikTok? Why would you spend time on LinkedIn? If you were on YouTube, who are your competitors? Like, how would you start thinking about, the content stack, and by that, we'll get a lot of editing and graphics and motion design and fun brand, manifestos, but they're thrilled to hear that we're interested in that. And that's a flip. That's a huge flip.
Yeah, Ryan, it's interesting because in a way, there's a strategic use of the word content, what you're saying, in that you're working with a brand or some kind of identity and saying, I'm going to draw the work that you want to produce toward me as a content creator. And I want you to remove the blocking in your head that has to be a film or a TV show or a 30-second commercial. I want you to remove all of those barriers into, let's create engagement in it with an entertainment piece that works well for your audience, and to remove the barriers. To use the word content is to remove those barriers and then open up opportunity for you, right? It actually, you can take the budget that was the 30-second piece and turn it into a 4-minute story brand, which is satisfying to you and your artistic nature if you use the word content instead of 4-minute film, because 4-minute film might have, I don't know, preconceived ideas of what a 4-minute film is instead of leaving it open. So there is a strategic need. There's a good purpose sometimes in changing people's perception of what they're making to create more opportunity for you. I get that one. That's really great.
Well, it's funny. I'm trying to look from parallels, and one that's coming to my mind is if I was a magazine, a journalistic outlet or something, would I say we need words? We need somebody that can develop copy for us? Not really, even though, yes, that's the end result, is words, sentences, paragraphs, copy, but we don't call it that, even though that's what it is. And I'm looking at like a photo book sitting here on my coffee table, and I'm saying, did the publisher say, we need a book full of pictures? No. but there is, I don't know, there's like a utility to calling it that.
Mhm.
But I'm guessing, like Ryan, in your example, when you talk about that content stack, I'm guessing you translate each layer of that stack. You go, yeah, this overall thing, sure, is a content strategy, right? Anybody remember the phrase content marketing when that was such the thing? But then you're probably quickly putting a different name or label on each layer of that onion, called this is a spot, this is a promo, this is an ID, this is an anthem, right? Because those labels are like, oh, those are types of content that are more valuable or potentially less valuable than others.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's a really interesting place to try to do what we're always trying to do, is create trust in someone to get us closer to the start of an idea, right?
Right.
You know, like, oh, if they're saying like, oh, we got to make a bunch of stuff. I don't know if I need a 4-minute video yet. I don't think I need a Super Bowl commercial yet, but I know I got to make a lot of stuff, and I have no idea how to like make it or how to like target it or get people to pay attention. It's a great way to actually see if you moved a needle with a client, right? Like, you don't know if anything we do hardly ever actually moves a needle unless they actually have a way to track it. But if you start doing stuff for YouTube, or you start doing stuff, I think it scares the living crap out of us, because it actually means our work actually does have to move the needle, and it's appreciable, and you can't keep the fog of war there anymore. So I think a lot of people are like, no way, I want to keep on talking about this fun storytelling stuff and keep doing it. But I do think if you can crack not that we've done this yet, but it's really exciting, because if you could flip it from like, we have 250 people and now we have 20,000 people, and the only difference is you started changing our thumbnails and started changing our 12-minute videos into 2-minute videos, and we're making 5 of them instead of 1 of them, and they're targeted towards people, you know, specific audiences. Like, that goes up the ladder really quickly to say, we spent how much with you? Maybe we actually do need to do a commercial, because you get us, you get our audience, right? Like, it's frightening, and it's very different than what I went to school for. But, you know, like, if our real thing is we're trying to get clients to trust us to spend more money with us more often, it's kind of exciting.
And also do something that they've never done before. Like, if the term content could push someone into thinking about the idea and appreciating the story, and then go, oh my God, it's an immersive experience, or it's a radio show. Or like, sometimes it's like that, not everything needs to be a video. And how could you push someone to doing something differently? And they need to feel comfortable with the shallow end before they jump off the deep end.
Yeah. It's getting it down to the root elements, isn't it? The word content. Joel, I'm gonna ask the opposite question in a second here too. I'm gonna say goodbye to you guys. Thanks, guys, for jumping in. I'm gonna see if we can drag more people in this conversation. But so we have people that
turn on their cameras.
Yeah, and everyone's like, I don't want to be called into next. But I asked a question originally, like, when is a good use of the term content? Because 70% of people know there's a utility to it. We're saying avoid to be commoditized. But some of you said you've never used the word content, or let's just not only open it to the 4 people who said they never use the word content, but those of you that know the other side of like why you wouldn't want to use the content for the work that you're doing, and what would you want to describe it? So I'd love to hear some more voices there of the work that you're doing. If it's not content, what is it that you are doing? Anyone?
Well, I'm also curious. I see Shauna, she lives in the world where a lot of people use that word, right? Because you're in that long form documentaries and series and that sort of stuff. And I'm like, does that
Can I bring you into this conversation, Shauna? Because she rolled her eyes as you said her name. I didn't want her to. She's like, oh, I'm always Joel's target for this. I swear. Hey, she's
usually a willing victim. So yeah, do you have a perspective on this? Like, do you agree with Emma Thompson or no?
I think it's funny how as the conversation started, I was like, we're so bold with our egos of feeling like somehow with our professional, well, our lighting looks better and stuff. Ultimately, did your content do what it needed to do? I feel like that word is so broad. It helps describe just the creation of the stuff we make. The content includes documentaries, it's short form, it's TikTok videos, it's Instagram images that go in sequence that help tell stories. And I feel like I'm not offended by that word at all. I'd never even thought about it being something that we should be like, oh, we don't make content, we make films. And so part of me was thinking about that of like, would I feel upset by that? But I don't know, because when I think about some of the things, like I love Imager. I'm off TikTok because we made the social dilemma and I have to be because it's so addictive. But like, I love Imager because it's not curated. Like it's not the algorithm. It's just a front, it's not custom to you. But when I think of all the things I favorited, And one of those is this ridiculously stupid animated bumblebee singing this song. It's an Imagine Dragons song about the bumblebee loving KFC. I don't know if anyone's seen this, but it's my favorite thing. And why do I love that? And I think about KFC and I'm like, was that sponsored? Is that for me? But it was so effective. If a brand had put that out there, and it's like 15 seconds long or something, like weirdly animated, super weird singer, but it did exactly what it needed to do. So if I'm a brand thinking about what is going to get, what is going to hit and do what I need to do, maybe something that feels like somebody randomly put it up organically is going to do what you need to do. So you should shoot it on your iPhone and without lighting and get a non-professional actor or whatever, right? So I don't know, like I feel like we need to check our egos a little bit.
I feel like you're almost saying you can take the user-generated content and turn it into an art form or a strategic art form. It reminds me of the ocean spray, the Instagram post of the guy riding the skateboard in Los Angeles drinking ocean spray cranberry juice, and eventually Ocean Spray found it and sponsored him after the fact.
Yes,
but it's
right?
The idea of like, we'll go where the people are in a way.
Yeah,
find that.
And you think of the millions and millions of people that are affected and are interested, and like even like my brother watches whenever we get together once a week. We were like, let's sit down, let's watch a show. And we used to watch, the Netflix and Hulu or whatever. We only watch YouTube. Like now we spend 2 or 3 hours just like YouTubing. And some of those YouTube content, some of that content is 40 minutes long and we sit through it. And so I'm like, it's kind of not totally my thing, but like the entertainment, people are using their computer webcams and sitting and making 40-minute videos. I think, Ryan, you said they're sophisticated. You think the amount of thought that had to go into that video where the people melted all the candies together and made one monster candy bar of all candies that exist. Like, how ridiculous was that? But they planned it out and they thought it through, told the story, got the, famous other influencers to come taste the candy. And like that, I mean, that's complicated. That's a lot of work they pour into it. So for us to be like, yeah, but you didn't go to film school. And did you really think about your background and light it with backlight and stuff? Feels like, does it work? I think the brand would say if it works, it works. And that's where we would need to come in and say, okay, I don't care to make those videos, which is why we don't do YouTube content. But I love this version of storytelling, but I think it's all valid.
All right, so let's argue the other side of this coin for a second. And here's a theory I'm putting out there. Is it possible an actor like Emma Thompson is coming from the SAG-AFTRA perspective, which is union, where, as we noticed in the writer's strike, a label like writer versus producer makes a world of difference between getting paid and, or breaking the strike and creating all sorts of enemies and so forth. So I'm wondering is it possible that there's actually a term that has consequences, meaning, if a company reaches out to a union member and says, I need a content creator, that because that word shows up in the contract, the pay scale is different. Maybe that's really what's going on here. I don't know. I'm not an expert on those nuances, but can anybody riff with me on this? Is that potentially what's beneath it?
Maybe, but I don't know. Put Mr. Beast on there and see what his salary is, right? Like,
yeah, right.
I don't know. He's like making $100 million or something a year.
Yeah. Well, because here's the example, right? For those of us in commercial production, if we were doing a shoot that was a union shoot versus a non-union shoot, right? Just the word union versus non-union has tremendous implications legally, financially, right? The cost of your shoot maybe doubled or tripled. So I'm wondering if that's part of the strategy here, is that behind the scenes, there's fine print in these negotiations, and the people like the Emma Thompsons of the world are saying, hey, don't call me a content anything, because I'm this, and when I show up and you use my likeness, I'm going to get paid for this. Maybe, Tim, you're nodding. Is that a reasonable theory?
Yeah, because I think what we want to be able to say is that there is a professional nature to what we're doing. There is a honed in skill after 20 years of work. And there's a reason why you're paying us $50,000 for an end tag instead of $5,000 for an end tag. because of the results we get or the professional nature we bring to it. If we dumb our services down to the commodity of content, then we really aren't presenting that value proposition in a clear way. So the desire for a different language at different times, and I'll say even to battle our clients, not dumbing down our contribution to just a piece of content. That's where it's offensive. If someone says, just give me any piece of content, you'd be like, I do something more than just anything. I think that's the creative nature of our industry that wants to hold up a higher bar.
Yeah, I see you
You're
nodding.
speaking more from our perspective of just like, is the question like, should we describe ourselves as content creators, or like, will we, are you at a different pay scale if you're like, oh yeah, welcome to Mass Effects, we make content, versus at Mass Effects, we do documentaries, whatever. I even changed my voice, like I'm even more sophisticated.
Yeah, perfect.
It's an interesting thought, because I think another question is who's signing the checks, of just like when you think about who's paying us to do the content or the videos or films that we're working on. A Netflix executive, if we're pitching something to them, like if I'm working on a series with a brand and we want to distribute it on one of the major streamers, versus they have their own platform where they're going to go and control their own audience versus even putting it on YouTube. Their question for me is, what I'm creating for them is what's going to get, depending on who we're going, like what type of content is going to get me the best outcome there. And so then, like, I want the SAG actors, I want the name because I'm selling to Netflix, or I'm going to go find the nobody YouTuber that has, 20 million viewers or whatever, because that's their audience is now going to become your audience, brand. And so I think who's signing that check and where are we trying to get it is a big question on how I might describe it too. Because if it's going to go to the YouTube audience, let's call it content, because that's what YouTube loves.
Well, again,
Maybe
I think,
might
Shauna,
sell it that way.
what you're saying is, some of what Ryan's saying is like, there's also this opportunity to be creative with this open mind. Hey, because there's something new, is there a creative approach to satisfying that need and getting better results than others? I mean, that's the competitive marketplace that we live in. So do we have to be snobby about what we're doing? No, I don't think so. But there might be a sense of the nature of who you want to work with.
Right.
You contribute content inside of other people's content, Shauna, right? So your almost creative partners are feature film documentary makers that are worth doing it for. And maybe even beyond the paycheck that they give you, you probably would choose, I don't know, the subject of the documentary to be, if it's offensive to you, you're not going to say yes to it, regardless if it's content inside of content. There's other things that contribute to our decision making. And I think when Joel talks about positioning in the marketplace, being known uniquely for what you're doing, that's what you have to be most clear about. And that language that distinguishes you in your expertise, that pulls you away or allows you to say yes and no, getting to that why, are all things we have to swim in all the time. And so maybe our warning today is like, the word content isn't horrible. There's actually opportunity inside of that word, or to change the mold that's coming at us. But we would want you to be precise on what you're going to contribute and not be commoditized, just going along with it if it's being thrown on you. It's your job to educate. I think Meg says it's your job to educate the buyer to lift up the value.
I love it's funny, kind of come full circle, right? Like, let's be snobs, as Emma Thompson was suggesting. And then we said, wait a minute, maybe we actually just embrace it because it is what it is, and it works. And then there's this other idea, Tim, that's like a middle solution where your brain came to, of go with it and extend it, take it further. Because I was just thinking, if someone came to me, like Shauna, if I was in your shoes and somebody said, well, my boss told me to call somebody and go get some content, I would probably say, we don't do content. We do ultra content, hyper content, right? Some whatever, right? Mass Effects. We do mass content. What's that? Well, I've gone with, right? I've gone with the evidence, with the flow, with the energy, with the trend, but I've taken it and added my certain spin to it. Because I will say, I've never heard anyone say, hey, do you want to stay at home tonight and watch some content?
Yeah, exactly.
So when we think about like end consumers, right, the millions and millions of people who actually are on the other side of our clients, right? It's not like, hey, honey, hand me the remote. I want to watch some content. Like,
You're not
that's
going to sell a lot
happening.
of popcorn if you're pushing content on people. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Let's go to the movies, right? Let's watch Netflix. It's interesting how our brains still categorize in those ways. We don't say,
Yeah.
let's watch some cool content.
Yeah.
I don't know. That might be generational. Like
It might be.
feel
I
like
know.
the
So
Ryan's
lower millennials to the Z's, they don't.
When's the last time you guys been to a
Netflix.
movie theater?
What?
Everybody's
Fast
watching content while they're watching the movie. I mean, come
Right.
on.
All right.
When's the last
Yeah.
time you sat down and said, "Hey, let's stay home tonight and watch a brand anthem advertisement"?
Exactly.
I want to see an
Exactly.
explainer video.
Exactly.
yes, right. Hey, honey, did you see that great explainer video? Pass the salt.
I mean, I think
Oh
that's
my
why it
gosh.
comes back down to ego, man. Like it
Yeah.
comes back down to being honest about like what are we doing? Unless you're literally making films or TV shows, which I don't think many of us are yet. Like, it's just being
Yeah.
honest about it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
even funny when you talk about the word films nowadays. That's such a odd term nowadays. It used to be so clear. Oh, I'm going to go to a movie theater and watch a film. And now I'm like, well, what's the difference between a film and a show and a series and a
The Oscars
just-
ask that questions every year now. That's
Right?
Emmys and Oscars. Yeah. It's the same problem. Yep.
Well, I think that maybe the sum total of the conversation is it's really interesting, right? Like set your ego aside, be curious, lean into it, right? And let's, as an industry and as participants in our industry, let's keep moving it forward. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that perspective, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Shauna, for playing with us today. You guys are great.
Yeah, thanks everyone who chimed in
And Meg
to
and
this
Matt,
conversation.
and you guys are awesome.
Yep, and I think we had David or a few others that jumped in live as well.
Yeah. Interesting.
Well, Tim, thanks for a good briefing. I was going to just mention that I created a page on our website because we're going to do this tonight. We're going to continue and do one of our quarterly dinners. So tonight, I got a bunch of smart people showing up. And guess what we're going to do? We're going to have a whole conversation this evening, springboarding off of what we've talked about here, but we get to do it in person with a nice drink and a good meal, which always enhances the experience when it's in person.
It's a great place to be having the dinner too. So you guys have a great time. Yeah.
Well, I look forward to seeing some of you there tonight. Tim, I'm sad you can't be here. When are you back in New York? Come on.
Life has its obligations. Come on to Los Angeles. We'll have our own thing to do. But just a reminder, we are not meeting next week. Think of obligations. Next week, no Wednesday weekly briefing. We're going to take the week off for Thanksgiving. We will be back in 2 weeks with another hot topic for many of us to discuss.
Something
So
spicy.
for many of you, happy Thanksgiving. In the States,
We should
and if you're
say-
not in the States,
well,
happy Thanksgiving.
We should say, Tim, we'll be back in 2 weeks with more great content.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye,
everyone.
Tim.
Thank you. Bye.